The chains bit into my wrists as I was shoved forward into the crystalline throne room. 3 years I'd spent in that cell. 3 years since they dragged me from the colony ship wreckage. 3 years of silence, except for the screaming in my own head. The Exathrene Queen sat motionless on her throne of living bone, her 4 eyes tracking me with the cold precision of a predator. Her carapace gleamed like polished obsidian, and when she spoke, her mandibles clicked in rhythm with the translator implant they'd forced into my skull. "The human merchandise," she said, her voice like wine through a tomb. "I was told you were broken beyond repair." I kept my eyes down. Survival meant silence. Survival meant becoming nothing. 3 standard cycles in isolation, she continued. No attempts at communication. No requests. No pleas. The traders assured me you would be compliant. Her 4-clawed hand gestured, and the guards released my chains. I stumbled but didn't fall. Wouldn't give them that. "I purchase you for a specific purpose," she said, rising from her throne. She was massive, nearly 9 feet tall, her segmented armor catching the light from the bioluminescent walls. "My daughter requires a companion. Someone to teach her about the lesser species before she assumes her role in the collective." Lesser species? I'd heard it before. We all had, those of us who survived first contact. Humanity had reached for the stars and found only contempt. A door opened behind the throne, and a smaller Exathrene emerged. The child, if that's what she was, stood perhaps 5 feet tall, her carapace still soft and translucent in places. Her eyes were different from her mother's. Curious, not cold. "This is Princess Viarine," the Queen said. "You will serve as her attendant. You will answer her questions. You will teach her your language, your customs, your weaknesses." The princess approached me, tilting her head in a gesture I'd learned meant confusion or interest. She raised one clawed hand toward my face, and I flinched. The Queen's guards moved instantly, weapons humming to life. But the princess just made a soft clicking sound and withdrew her hand. "Mother," she said in perfect, unaccented English. "Why does it fear me?" The Queen's mandibles spread in what might have been approval. "You see? She learns quickly. Answer her, human." I opened my mouth. Nothing came out. 3 years of silence had stolen my voice. "It is defective," one of the guards said. "Return it for processing." "No." The princess moved closer, and this time I forced myself to remain still. Its heart rate increased. Its pupils dilated. It understands but cannot respond. This is trauma response. Yes? She looked at her mother, and the Queen's expression shifted to something I couldn't read. "You have studied their medical texts," the Queen said. "I have studied everything you allowed me to access," Viarine replied. She turned back to me. "Human. I will not harm you. My mother will not harm you. Can you nod if you understand?" Slowly, carefully, I nodded. "Good." The princess made another clicking sound, this one different. Softer. "My name is Viarine. Can you tell me yours?" I tried again. Failed again. "Time," Viarine said to her mother. "It needs time. Time is something the collective does not waste on damaged goods," the Queen replied. But she made a gesture, and the guards stepped back. "1 rotation. If it cannot fulfill its purpose by then, it will be recycled." They left me in a chamber adjacent to the princess's quarters. Not a cell this time, but something worse, a room designed to look almost human. Almost welcoming. It made my skin crawl. I sat on the floor, not the bed. Couldn't trust comfort. Comfort meant letting your guard down, and that's when they struck. The door chimed, and Viarine entered without waiting for permission. She carried something in her claws, a data pad displaying images of Earth. Old images, from before the invasion. Before the occupation. Before everything burned. "I have a question," she said, settling onto the floor across from me. "But I will not force an answer." She set the pad between us. The image showed a human child, maybe 6 years old, holding hands with an adult. Both were smiling. This bond, the Arene said. Parent and offspring. The texts say it is fundamental to your species. But I do not understand it. My mother is my queen first. She provided my genetics, but her role is governance, not this. She gestured at the image. What is this called? I stared at the picture. Remembered holding my own daughter's hand. Remembered her laugh. Remembered the colony's ship breaking apart. Remembered being unable to reach her. Love, I whispered. The words scraped out like broken glass. The Arene's eyes widened. All four of them. You spoke. I nodded, tears streaming down my face for the first time in 3 years. This love, the Arene said softly. Did you have it? Before? Yes. And now? I looked at her then. Really looked. Saw not a monster, but a child trying to understand a concept her entire species had bred out of existence. Now it's just pain. The weight of the galaxy pressed down on those words. 3 years of silence, shattered by a truth I'd buried so deep I thought it was gone. But pain never dies. It just waits. The Arene reached out again, and this time I didn't flinch. Her claw touched my hand, not grabbing, not restraining. Just contact. Just acknowledgement. I am sorry for your pain, she said. And somehow, impossibly, I believed her. The Queen summoned me at dawn. Exathrine dawn, a shift in the bioluminescent lighting that marked their circadian rhythm. I'd slept for maybe an hour, and every muscle in my body screamed from years of concrete cells and malnutrition. The Arene walked beside me through the palace corridors. She'd insisted on accompanying me, though her mother had expressly forbidden it. Apparently, teenage rebellion was universal. You should not have spoken to me last night without permission, she said quietly. Mother will be displeased. I thought that was the point, I replied. My voice still felt foreign in my throat. You asked a question? I answered. Yes, but the answer was not what she expected. She wanted you to teach me about human weakness, human inferiority. Instead, you taught me about something we removed from our society 12,000 cycles ago. We reached the throne room. The Queen waited, flanked by her High Council, 6 ancient Exathrine whose carapaces bore the scars of centuries. The humans spoke, the Queen said. Not a question. A statement. It did, Your Majesty, the Arene replied, using the formal address. And with great significance. Show me. The Arene pulled up the same image from last night on a holographic display. I asked about this bond. The parent-offspring connection. The human identified it as love and claimed to have experienced it before capture. One of the council members clicked sharply. Love. That primitive emotional attachment. The very thing that nearly destroyed our species before we evolved beyond it. Indeed, the Queen said. She fixed her gaze on me. Tell me, human. This love you speak of. Did it make you strong? I thought about my daughter. About my wife. About everyone I'd lost. No, I said. It made me human. And what is the difference? Strength is what you have when you have nothing to lose. Being human means caring so much that loss destroys you, but you keep going anyway. The council erupted in clicking, chirping arguments. The Arene watched me with those curious eyes, and I saw understanding dawning in them. Understanding her mother definitely didn't want. The Queen raised one claw, and silence fell immediately. You were purchased to teach my daughter about humanity's flaws, she said. To demonstrate why the collective's way is superior. Why emotional attachment is weakness. Why we were right to purge it from our evolution. Then I've failed, I said. Because love isn't a flaw. It's the only thing that separates living from existing. Bold words from someone in chains. I'm not in chains anymore. The Queen's mandibles spread. No. You are not. And that is the problem. She descended from her throne, each step deliberate and heavy. When she stood before me, I had to crane my neck to meet her eyes. Do you know why I truly purchased you? She asked. I shook my head. Because my daughter has been asking questions. Dangerous questions. About our history. About what we lost when we chose efficiency over emotion. About whether the price of our perfection was worth paying. She turned to Vierine. Show him. Vierine hesitated, then pulled up another display. This one showed Exathrine history, images of their species before the Great Purge. They looked different. Softer. Their carapaces bore colors, patterns. And they were touching each other. Not for combat or reproduction, but for comfort. My ancestors believed emotional bonds made us weak, the Queen said. They saw how love could be exploited, how attachment could be weaponized. So they engineered it out of us. Made us efficient. Made us strong. Made us. She paused. Empty. The word hung in the air like a confession. You wanted me to prove you right, I said. To show your daughter that love is weakness. Yes. But instead I proved you wrong. No, the Queen said, and her voice carried a weight that made my bones ache. You proved that we have been lying to ourselves for 12,000 cycles. She returned to her throne, suddenly, looking tired despite her perfect, engineered biology. My daughter will rule one day, she said. And she will face a choice we have avoided for millennia. To remain as we are, strong, efficient, empty, or to risk becoming weak again. Vulnerable again. Human again. With respect, Your Majesty, I said, you're not asking if you should become human. You're asking if you should become alive. The council erupted again, but the Queen silenced them with a gesture. 1 week, she said. You will teach Vierine everything about human emotion. Everything about love, grief, joy, pain. Every weakness you possess. And, at the end of that week, she will decide. Decide what? Whether the collective continues as it has, or whether we risk everything to become something we have not been for 12,000 cycles. The Queen's eyes locked onto mine. Whether we risk becoming whole. Vierine stepped forward. Mother, the Council will never allow. The Council serves the throne. The Queen interrupted. And I serve the future. Your future. She looked at me again, and for the first time, I saw something behind those alien eyes. Something desperate. Something almost human. Teach her, she commanded. And pray to whatever gods you humans still believe in that you are right about this love being worth the cost. Because if I was wrong, an entire species would pay the price. The week passed like a fever dream. Each day, I sat with Vierine in the observatory, a glass chamber overlooking the planet's violet sky, and tried to explain concepts that had no translation in Exathrine language. Tell me about hope, she said on the second day. Hope is believing in tomorrow when today is unbearable. But that is illogical. If today is unbearable, probability suggests tomorrow will be similar. Yes. Then why hope? Because without it you stop fighting. And fighting is how you survive long enough for tomorrow to prove you wrong. She processed this in silence, her mandibles moving in small, thoughtful gestures. On the fourth day, she asked about grief. My mother says grief is the price of attachment. That your species suffers unnecessarily because you refuse to let go of the dead. I showed her a photo I'd hidden in my clothes, creased and faded, but still recognizable. My daughter, laughing at something outside the frame. Her name was Sarah, I said. She was 7 when the colony's ship broke apart. I couldn't reach her. Couldn't save her. Vierine studied the image. And you carry this pain every day? Yes. Why? Because forgetting her would mean she never existed. The pain proves she was real. That she mattered. But it serves no function. It makes you weaker. It makes me remember why I'm human. Why any of this matters. I took the photo back. Your mother asked if love made me strong. It didn't. But it gave me something to be strong for. On the 6th day, the Queen joined our sessions. She sat silently in the corner, listening as I taught her daughter about sacrifice, about trust, About the stupid, irrational, beautiful things humans did for each other. Explain marriage, the Queen said suddenly. I blinked. Marriage? Two humans binding themselves together permanently. Sharing resources. Raising offspring jointly. Our analysts found it statistically inefficient. Divorce rates suggest a failure rate of nearly 50%. Why persist with a system that fails half the time? Because the 50% that works is worth the risk. Why? I thought about my wife. About our last conversation before the invasion. Because facing the universe alone is terrifying, I said. But facing it with someone who chose to stand beside you makes it bearable. Marriage isn't about efficiency. It's about not being alone when the darkness comes. The Queen's expression shifted, subtle, but there. And when your partner dies? When you are alone anyway? Then you carry them with you. Their voice in your head. Their memory in your heart. You're never truly alone if you loved someone. That is... She paused. Comforting. Yes. And terrifying. Also yes. She stood, her massive frame casting shadows across the observatory. You have taught my daughter well. Perhaps too well. Your Majesty, tomorrow. She interrupted. Tomorrow, Virine makes her choice. And we all face the consequences. She left, and Virine turned to me with something like fear in her eyes. I don't know what to choose, she whispered. If I choose emotion, I risk destabilizing the entire collective. Our society functions because we are rational, efficient, united in purpose. Introducing emotion could tear us apart. It could, I agreed. But if I choose to remain as we are, she gestured at her mother's retreating form. I will never understand what she was trying to tell me just now. I will never know what it means to be comforted. To not be alone. That's the choice, I said. Safety or meaning. Survival or life. What would you choose? I looked at Sarah's photo again. Thought about every moment of pain, every second of grief, every sleepless night since losing her. I'd choose love, I said. Every time. Even knowing the cost. Why? Because a life without love is just a long wait for death. And I'd rather burn bright and brief than flicker cold forever. Virine was silent for a long moment. Then, she reached out and touched my hand again, that same gentle contact from our first real conversation. Thank you, she said, for teaching me what it means to be alive. The next morning would bring her decision. Would bring change or stagnation. Would determine whether an entire species could learn to feel again, or whether they'd chosen their path 12,000 cycles ago and there was no turning back. I didn't sleep that night. Just sat in my room, holding Sarah's photo, and hoped I hadn't just destroyed a civilization. The council chamber filled before dawn. Every high-ranking member of the Xathrene collective stood in their designated positions, hundreds of them, arranged in perfect geometric precision. No murmuring. No side conversations. Just patient, efficient waiting. I stood beside Virine in the center of the chamber, feeling every alien eye on me. The Queen sat on her throne above us, her expression unreadable. We are here, she announced, to witness the princess's decision regarding the future of our species. She has spent 1 week studying human emotion through direct observation and instruction. She will now present her findings and make her choice. Virine stepped forward. Her carapace had hardened slightly over the week, she was maturing fast. But her eyes still held that curiosity, that dangerous spark of wonder. Members of the collective, she began. I have learned many things this week. I have learned about hope, grief, joy, love, sacrifice. I have learned that humans are indeed weaker than us in almost every measurable way. The council clicked approvingly. But I have also learned, Virine continued, that they possess something we lack. Something we engineered out of ourselves 12,000 cycles ago. Something we convinced ourselves was weakness. She turned to face the entire assembly. They possess purpose. Silence. We are efficient, Virine said. We are strong. We have conquered 17 systems. We have achieved technological supremacy. But when I asked the human why he continues to exist despite his pain, despite his losses, despite having every reason to surrender to despair, he showed me a picture of his dead daughter and said, because forgetting her would mean she never mattered. She paused, letting the words sink in. What matters to us? She asked the council. What do we fight for? What do we protect? We have optimized everything: reproduction, resource distribution, military expansion. But why? To what end? We exist to exist efficiently. We survive to survive longer. But we do not live. Emotional attachment is a vulnerability, one of the council members said. It can be exploited. Used against us. Yes, Vierine agreed. And that is precisely why it is powerful. To love something is to give an enemy leverage against you. To hope is to risk disappointment. To grieve is to acknowledge loss. These are not flaws in human psychology. They are features. They are what makes survival meaningful. Another council member spoke. The Great Purge saved our species. Before we removed emotion, we were destroying ourselves. Civil wars. Irrational violence. Chaos. Were we? Vierine pulled up historical records, documents I'd never seen before. Or did we simply lack the wisdom to integrate emotion with reason? Look at these records. Look at what we were before the purge. We created art. We formed bonds across genetic lines. We sacrificed for each other not out of duty, but out of care. We were alive. The queen shifted on her throne. And we were dying. Because we were young. Vierine replied, turning to face her mother. Not because we were wrong. Humans experience all the same emotions we purged, yet they built civilizations. They reach the stars. They love fiercely and fight desperately and hope stubbornly. They are everything we convinced ourselves was impossible: emotional and functional, vulnerable and strong. They also failed. The Queen said quietly. We defeated them. Occupied their worlds. Scattered them across the galaxy. If their love was strength, why did they lose? Vierine looked at me, and I knew what she needed. Answer her, Vierine said. Why did we win? Every eye turned to me. I took a breath. You won, I said, because you had nothing to lose. We fought to protect our families, our homes, our futures. You fought to expand. To conquer. To add resources to your collective. When we lost ground, we lost everything. When you lost ground, you just reallocated forces. You were playing chess. We were trying to save our children. Exactly. One council member said. Emotion made you weak. No, I replied. Emotion made us care enough to fight at all. The difference is you had 12,000 cycles to perfect your strategy. We had 300 years of space flight. Give us time, and we'll find the balance she's talking about. The ability to love and fight. To care and still win. Time, the Queen repeated. Time is not something we typically grant defeated species. Which is why I must make my choice now, Vierine said. Before the collective decides that emotion is only a weakness to be exploited, never a strength to be cultivated. She stood taller, her carapace gleaming in the chamber's light. I choose evolution, she declared. I choose to risk vulnerability for the chance at meaning. I choose to reintegrate emotion into our species, slowly and carefully, learning from human mistakes and human successes. I choose to become something we have not been for 12,000 cycles. You choose to make us weak, a council member said. I choose to make us whole. The chamber erupted in clicking, chirping chaos. Arguments flew between council members. Some demanded Vierine's removal from succession. Others called for her immediate education in proper collective thinking. A few, very few, remained silent, watching. The Queen raised one claw, and gradually the chaos subsided. You understand, she said to her daughter, that this choice will be opposed. That some will see it as madness. That you risk civil unrest, possible fracturing of the collective, and the undoing of 12,000 cycles of stability. Yes, Mother. And you still choose this path? Yes. The Queen was silent for a long moment. Then, she did something I'd never seen a Exathrine do. She descended from her throne and approached her daughter. She placed both claws on Vierine's shoulders, a gesture of contact, of connection, of something beyond duty. Then, you are wiser than I was at your age, the Queen said softly, and braver than I have been my entire reign. She turned to face the council. My daughter's choice is made. As is mine. We will begin the reintegration. Slowly. Carefully. With the human as our guide. Your Majesty, silence. The Queen's voice carried absolute authority. I have ruled for 600 cycles. I have conquered systems and integrated species. I have done everything the collective required of me. But I have never once made a choice based on what I wanted. On what I felt. Her mandibles trembled slightly. Until now. She looked at me, and I saw something impossible in her eyes. Tears. Not human tears, but something like them, a crystalline secretion that meant emotional overflow. You asked me once, she said, why I truly purchased you. The answer is simple. I heard rumors about humans. About their irrational attachments. About how they would sacrifice everything for those they loved. And I wondered. She paused, and one of those crystalline tears fell. I wondered what it would be like to feel that. To care about something more than duty. To love my daughter not as my heir, but as my child. Vierine made a sound, a soft, broken click. Mother? The truth, the Queen said, is that I have been feeling it for years. Ever since you were young. Ever since you started asking questions I had no words to answer. I have been experiencing emotion without understanding it. Love without acknowledging it. And it has been the most terrifying experience of my existence. She touched Vierine's face with one claw, so gentle, so careful. I purchased a human not to prove that emotion is weakness, she continued, but to discover if what I feel is possible. If after 12,000 cycles of evolution, love could still exist in our species. And now I have my answer. What is your answer? Vierine whispered. That I love you, the Queen said. And I am terrified of losing you. And that terror makes me want to keep you safe, which means giving you the freedom to become whoever you choose to be. Even if that choice leads us into uncertainty. The council stood frozen. This was beyond unprecedented. This was revolution. Vierine reached up and touched her mother's claw. I love you too, she said in English, then repeated it in Exathrine, using words that hadn't been spoken in 12,000 cycles. The Queen turned to me, those crystalline tears still falling. You bought me but did not use me, she said, her voice breaking. You answered my daughter's questions with truth instead of propaganda. You showed us what we lost. And now we must face the consequences of remembering. What happens now? I asked. Now, the Queen said, we begin the hardest thing any species can do. We change. We evolve not through genetics, but through choice. We relearn what it means to be whole. She addressed the council. Those who oppose this decision may do so through proper channels. But understand, this is not a request. It is a declaration. The collective will integrate emotion, or the collective will face the truth that we are not superior to humanity. We are simply their cautionary tale. Some council members bowed. Others remained rigid. But none challenged her directly. As the chamber emptied, Vierine approached me. Thank you, she said, for risking honesty when lies would have been safer. Thank you, I replied, for asking questions when ignorance would have been easier. Will you stay? Help us learn? I thought about Sarah. About my wife. About everyone I'd lost. Yes, I said. Because maybe if I can help your species remember how to love, then their deaths meant something. Then they mattered. Vierine touched my hand one more time. They mattered. And now, because of them, we will matter too. The Queen watched us from her throne, and in her alien face, I saw something fundamentally human, a mother watching her child grow, terrified and proud in equal measure. That night, I slept without nightmares for the first time in 3 years. And somewhere in the palace, a civilization began the long, painful, beautiful process of learning to feel again. The stars outside the observatory shone with their usual indifference. But inside, something had shifted. Something had changed. Something had become possible. 6 months later, I stood in the palace gardens, a new addition, created at Vierine's insistence. The Exathrine were learning that beauty had value beyond efficiency. It was slow going. How do you determine which plants are aesthetically pleasing? Vierine asked, studying a cluster of earth flowers I'd helped cultivate. You don't determine it, I said. You feel it. But feeling is subjective. Yes. So there is no correct answer? The correct answer is whatever makes you happy. She tilted her head in that confused gesture. But happiness serves no evolutionary function. Doesn't it? Happy people work harder. Care more. Fight for the future instead of just surviving the present. She touched one of the flowers, carefully, learning gentleness. The Council still opposes many of Mother's changes. I know. Some have proposed reverting to the old ways. They say emotion has made us less efficient. Has it? Yes, Vierine admitted. Productivity is down 12% across all sectors. Decision-making takes longer. There have been conflicts between workers who previously had no disagreements. So it's a failure? No. She smiled, a human expression she'd been practicing. It still looked wrong on her alien features, but the intention was clear. Because 3 days ago, I watched 2 engineers argue about the best design solution. They disagreed. They became frustrated. And then, they collaborated on a third option that was superior to both their original ideas. The conflict led to innovation. Yes. Something we have not experienced since the Purge. We became so efficient at agreement that we lost the ability to be surprised by new ideas. She stood brushing dirt from her carapace. Mother wants to see you. In the observatory. I found the Queen exactly where I'd spent so many hours with Vierine, staring at the violet sky, alone with her thoughts. You summoned me, Your Majesty? I did. She did in turn. I have a question. I'll answer if I can. Do the dead ever stop haunting you? I moved to stand beside her. No. I feared as much. But the haunting changes. I continued. At first it's pain. Pure, overwhelming grief. Then, it becomes memory. And eventually, if you're lucky, it becomes gratitude. You're grateful they existed. Grateful you knew them. Grateful for the time you had, even though it wasn't enough. The Queen's crystalline tears fell again. She'd been crying more often as she learned to process emotion. I have been dreaming, she said. Something we engineered out of ourselves along with emotion. But it has returned. And in my dreams I see our people before the Purge. I see them laughing, touching, caring for each other. Do the dreams frighten you? Yes. Because I see what we destroyed. And I wonder if we can ever truly get it back. You won't, I said honestly. You can't undo 12,000 cycles. But you can build something new. Something that honors both what you were and what you became. She turned to face me finally. The Council wants to slow the reintegration. They say we are moving too fast, risking too much. Are they right? I do not know. I feel too much to see clearly anymore. Welcome to being human. She made a sound that might have been a laugh. Is it always this difficult? Yes. But it's also the point. The difficulty means you care. And caring is what makes any of this matter. We stood in silence for a while, watching her world spin beneath us. Your people, she said eventually. Those who survived. They are scattered across the collective, correct? Yes. Slaves, mostly. Servants. Laborers. I am going to free them. I stared at her. What? All of them. Every human in collective space. I am issuing a decree. They will be offered citizenship, compensation, and the choice to return to Earth or remain. The Council will never, the Council will comply or be replaced. Her voice carried steel. My daughter taught me that emotion is strength. Now I will prove it. I will show the collective that we are strong enough to admit when we are wrong. Why? Because, she said, those tears still falling, you gave me back my daughter. The least I can do is help you find your people. Something broke in my chest. 3 years of grief, 3 years of loss, 3 years of believing everyone I knew was gone forever. Thank you, I whispered. No. Thank you? For teaching us that strength without compassion is just cruelty. That efficiency without purpose is just existence. That being superior means nothing if you have nothing worth protecting. She placed one claw on my shoulder. You were purchased as merchandise. But you became our teacher. Our guide. Our reminder of what we lost and what we could become again. I'm just one man. Yes. One man who changed an empire because he refused to let love die. She removed her claw. That is not weakness. That is the most powerful thing in the universe. As I left the observatory, I passed Vierine in the corridor. She was teaching a group of younger Exathrine about art, showing them paintings from Earth, asking them which ones made them feel something. Most looked confused. But one, a small child even younger than Vierine, pointed at a painting of a sunset and said, "It makes me feel warm. Like I am safe." Vierine clicked softly. Yes. That is beauty. That is emotion. That is what we are relearning. I continued walking, but her words followed me. We are relearning. Not learning. Relearning. They'd known once. They'd felt once. And they could again. 6 months ago, I'd been merchandise. A broken tool purchased for a specific purpose. Now I was something else. Something impossible. I was hope. For the Exathrine who were discovering feeling for the first time in 12,000 cycles. For the humans who might soon be free. For Vierine, who would one day rule with both wisdom and compassion. For the Queen, who was learning that love was worth every terrifying moment. And for myself. For Sarah. For my wife. For everyone I'd lost. Because maybe, just maybe, their deaths hadn't been meaningless. Maybe they'd bought me time. Time to survive. Time to teach. Time to show an alien species that humanity's greatest strength wasn't our technology or our adaptability. It was our stubborn, irrational, beautiful refusal to stop caring. Even when caring destroyed us. Especially then. I looked up at the violet sky, at the stars beyond, and felt something I hadn't felt since the invasion. Peace. Not because the pain was gone. But because the pain had purpose. And that made all the difference. The Queen had purchased me but not used me as intended. Her daughter had asked questions that shattered assumptions. And somewhere in that space between intention and reality, between what was planned and what happened, a bridge had formed. Human and alien. Emotion and reason. Strength and vulnerability. We were all learning. All changing. All becoming something new. And if that wasn't worth fighting for, worth surviving for, worth hoping for, then nothing was. The guards nodded as I passed. The servants greeted me by name. The palace that had once been a prison now felt almost like home. Almost. Because home was Earth. Home was people who understood grief without explanation. Home was the messy, complicated, painful beauty of humanity. But until I could return there, until any of us could, this would do. A palace full of aliens learning to cry. A empire learning to care. A civilization that had bought merchandise and found a mirror instead. And in that mirror they saw not weakness, but possibility. Not inferiority, but simply difference. Not something to eliminate, but something to integrate. The Exathrine would never be human. But they didn't need to be. They just needed to remember that before they were an empire, before they were a collective, before they were conquerors, they were people. And people, human or alien, needed more than efficiency to make existence worthwhile. They needed meaning. They needed connection. They needed love. Even if it hurt. Even if it was terrifying. Even if it meant risking everything they built. Because in the end, what was the point of building an empire if there was nothing inside it worth protecting? That was the lesson. That was the answer. That was why the Queen had cried when she heard the truth she'd been avoiding for 600 cycles. She'd bought me but not used me as intended. And in that gap between expectation and reality, between what should have happened and what did, we'd all found something unexpected. We'd found each other. And that, more than any technology or conquest or efficiency, was what made the universe worth exploring. The connections we formed along the way. The love we discovered in impossible places. The hope that refused to die, no matter how many reasons it had to surrender. I walked through the palace gardens, past the flowers that shouldn't exist on an alien world, under a sky that would never look like Earth's, surrounded by people who would never be human. And I felt grateful. For Sarah, who taught me what love meant. For the Queen, who was brave enough to question everything. For Vieraine, who asked the right questions at the right time. For myself, for surviving long enough to matter. The stars above remained indifferent. The universe continued its expansion, uncaring of our small dramas and tiny revolutions. But down here on this planet, in this palace, in this moment, we cared. And that made us infinite.